What's up, YouTube world? Just want to take a few minutes and go over this rough country hidden winch system. I got the rough country winch, the 12,000 pounder. Some trial and error with this, and there's not a lot of good videos on YouTube, so here I just take a few short clips and kind of put them all together for you, so you can kind of see what I went through to get this thing installed. So follow along. So I got a 2014 Silverado 4-wheel drive. So the grill setup I have on it. I know different packages have different grill styles, but to get this top cover off, there's just a few bolts. Super easy to get a hold of, not very hard to get off. You'll notice that there's a trim piece missing right here, which is this silver piece over here. So this is where you can kind of see the clips on it. So you do want definitely something that a trim puller or something like that to be able to get those clips off. To get to some of them, if you have this this liner in here, you'll see there's these screws. There's about 8 of them, I think, something like that, that you're gonna have to take apart, as well as a couple side screws that hold that trim piece in. Looking in here, you can kind of see these are kind of the areas where those clip into. So you can kind of pull down on it as you're going through and get that trim puller in there and pop that clip out. And I kind of just started from one end to the middle and then the other end to the middle, and that got it off. As far as getting the grill off, up top you got 1, 2, 3, 4, and as well as in here you'll have a bolt. You'll have 4 bolts, 2 on each side. Once you get those off, you got some bumper bolts there and underneath, and pretty self-explanatory as far as pulling those off. I do have the bumper sensors, so if you're looking at the actual instructions for the hidden winch, one of the things it doesn't include is you'll see that little quick disconnect cable. Just make sure you get that off before you actually take the bumper off. So a couple things I definitely recommend that you have on hand to get this done. An impact driver, $50, $60 at Harbor Freight. A drill, some trim pullers. I just got a cheap $8 set from Harbor Freight because I don't plan on pulling a lot of trim. Socket set. Definitely want an angle grinder because you will be cutting some metal, and I'll cover that here in a little bit. So we got 4 bolts on top to get the grill back off. And 4 on the bottom. So once you have those bolts out, there's a couple clips on the side still kind of holding this in. So as long as you kind of just lift up and pull, it comes off. So the bumper, these top bolts are like 18 millimeter. And there's a couple more that you got to take out. This is my second go around. I'll kind of explain why. But the instructions for the hidden mount kind of goes through where the bolts are and what all needs to happen with that. All right, so we got the bumper off now. You'll see I already got my winch plate in. So a couple things you got to be aware of when you are getting ready to start cutting, you're going to have a plate that kind of sticks out right here that has to be trimmed off. It's 2 pieces of steel pretty much. This piece bolts to the front piece. So you got to cut straight down that. Fairly easy with a angle grinder with a cutting disc on it. Biggest thing I'd recommend is making sure that you got enough cutting disc to reach. Because that's what I ran to. I run to the store and get another one. So both sides, hit that. Obviously spray paint it to protect it. The other thing that you're going to have to cut, depending on your bumper system, is I have a plate right here. Some of them have 2, but based off of what bumper configuration you have, you have to trim some of that piece off because you're going to have to drill through here for your fairlane. When it comes to actually putting this winch plate on, super simple. You're going to take your, I'd recommend just taking these out first. It doesn't say that, but that's what I'd recommend. And just putting your hardware through so you can put this plate on. This hole's already going to be in there as far as your frame goes, but these 3 will not. So put it on there, kind of tighten this down a little bit to make sure it's squared away, and obviously mark center of your holes. You only need to drill through this one side of your frame, and then you got hardware to bolt it in there. Same thing, same exact process on this side. Once you get those on there, this plate bolts on, and then you're kind of ready to get your winch going. So the install process is fairly simple. I ended up going with the Rough Country 12,000 pound winch because I originally got the Badlands Apex. So if you're wondering, hey, I got 2014 Silverado, this says it can fit a 12,000 pound winch, will the Apex fit in there? The answer is not without modification. So if there's a system out there I could just bolt in, it's fairly similar as far as cost goes. Really the only thing I'm missing out on is the fancy hook and a wireless remote. But that's not the end of the world for me. So the reason that Badlands doesn't fit is these grill mounts and this radiator mount. The control box casing is too tall here, so you can't get it in. So I took the control box off. I was going to mount it inside the truck. I go put the winch back in, and it does not fit width-wise. So the housing is gonna stick over a little bit, as far, not exactly where the bolts go, but it can't sit in flush. And then these little tabs right here also kind of catch. So without trimming this and potentially notching this, you're not gonna get that Badlands to fit in there. Now if that's no big deal for you, I'm sure it'd be easy to make it work with a little bit of grinding. It just wasn't what I was looking for. I want to try to keep this winch plate as stable as possible if I'm going to be using it with a 12,000 pound winch. So the mount up procedures are pretty simple, but this was what I needed to do to get it prepped. And then I had to take a quick intermission due to the toddler. But ultimately, this is the configuration you're going to be looking at for being able to get your winch mounted in. As far as mounting goes, a couple other things that I'd consider. If you're going to remove the control box, there's kind of a spot nick over here next to the battery that will work fairly well for moving that control box to maybe protect it from water, weather, that kind of stuff. But not planning on doing that for right now. I'll do a quick overview real quick once I got the winch installed. More to come. So a couple things to think about as you're getting this in. One, you got a ground screw over here. That's a bloody band-aid. You got a ground screw over here, so get your cable on there before you get the winch put in. Another thing you might want to pay attention to is get this little ground wire going from the control box to that same ground screw. I don't really like how that's in there, so I'd definitely probably secure it up away from the spool. when your winch is in operation. A couple other things, it's a pretty tight fit in between this bracket, which is great. However, they use some square nuts that fit into these grooves front and back. Well, there's no way to get to the rear ones after you've set the winch in. So make sure you get those nuts set in before you put that winch in. And then just 4 bolts at the bottom. Snug them up and then run your wires. The other thing you're going to have to consider is, do you want to be able to free spool or not? So obviously that requires probably trimming out part of your grill. For now, I'm going to just leave mine engaged and use the remote to unspool it. If that becomes super inconvenient, then I might consider trimming away at some of my grill.